Welcome back in part 5 of Google Chrome. The current version of Chrome runs on Windows 10 or later.
Mac OS 10.15 or later.
64-bit versions of Ubuntu 18.04 plus, Debian 10 plus, OpenSUSE 15.2 plus, and Fedora 32 plus.
Android Oreo or later, Android 10 or later, for 64-bit Chrome.
And iOS 16 or later. As of April 2016, stable 32-bit and 64-bit builds are available for Windows, with only 64-bit stable builds available for Linux and Mac OS.
64-bit Windows builds became available in the developer channel and as Canary builds on June 3, 2014. In the beta channel on July 30, 2014, and in the stable channel on August 26, 2014.
64-bit OS 10 builds became available as Canary builds on November 7, 2013, in the beta channel on October 9, 2014, and in the stable channel on November 18, 2014. Starting with the release of version 89, Chrome will only be supported on Intel/Intel x86 and AMD processors with the SSE3 instruction set. A beta version for Android 4.0 devices was launched on February 7, 2012, available for a limited number of countries from Google Play. Notable features: synchronization with desktop Chrome to provide the same bookmarks and view the same browser tabs, page re-rendering, hardware acceleration. Many of the latest HTML5 features, almost all of the web platform's features, GPU accelerated canvas, including CSS 3D transforms, CSS animations, SVG, WebSocket, including binary messages. Dedicated workers, it has overflow scroll support, strong HTML5 video support, and new capabilities such as IndexedDB, web workers, application cache and the file API'(S), date and time tickers, parts of the media capture API.
Also supports mobile-oriented features such as device orientation and geolocation.
Mobile customizations, swipe gesture tab switching, link preview allow zooming in on multiple links to ensure the desired one is clicked, font size boosting to ensure readability regardless of the zoom level. Features missing in the mobile version include sandbox tabs, safe browsing, apps or extensions, Adobe Flash, now and in the future, native client, and the ability to export user data sets a list of their open tabs or their browsing history into portable local files. Development changes, remote debugging, part of the browser layer, has been implemented in Java, communicating with the rest of the Chromium and WebKit code through Java native bindings.
The code of Chrome for Android is a fork of the Chromium project.
It is a priority to upstream most new and modified code for Chromium and WebKit to resolve the fork. The April 17, 2012 update included availability in 31 additional languages and in all countries where Google Play is available.
A desktop version of a website can also be requested as opposed to a mobile version.
In addition, Android users can now add bookmarks to their Android home screens if they choose and decide which app should handle links opened in Chrome. On June 27, 2012, Google Chrome for Android exited beta and became stable. Chrome 18.0.1026.311, released on September 26, 2012, was the first version of Chrome for Android to support mobile devices based on Intel x86. Starting from version 25, the Chrome version for Android is aligned with the desktop version, and usually new stable releases are available at the same time between the Android and the desktop version.
Google released a separate Chrome for Android beta channel on January 10, 2013, with version 25.
As of 2013, a separate beta version of Chrome is available in the Google Play Store. It can run side by side with a stable release. Chrome is available on Apple's mobile iOS operating system as Google Chrome for iOS.
Released in the Apple App Store on June 26, 2012, it supports the iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch, and the current version requires that the device has iOS 15.0 or greater installed.
In accordance with Apple's requirements for browsers released through their App Store, this version of Chrome uses the iOS WebKit, which is Apple's own mobile rendering engine and components. Developed for their Safari browser, therefore it is restricted from using Google's own V8 JavaScript engine.
Chrome is the default web browser for the iOS Gmail application.
In a review by Chitika, Chrome was noted as having 1.5% of the iOS web browser market as of July 18, 2012.
In October 2013, Chrome had 3% of the iOS browser market.
On Linux distributions, support for 32-bit Intel processors ended in March 2016, although Chromium is still supported.
As of Chrome version 26, Linux installations of the browser may be updated only on systems that support GCC v4.6 and GTK v2.24 or later.
Thus deprecated systems include, for example, Debian 6 is 2.20 and RHEL6 is 2.18. Support for Google Chrome on Windows XP and Windows Vista ended in April 2016.
The last release of Google Chrome that can be run on Windows XP and Windows Vista was version 49.0.2623.112. Released on April 7, 2016, then re-released on April 11, 2016.
Support for Google Chrome on Windows 7 was supposed to end upon the announcement on July 15, 2021, and suddenly moved to January 15, 2022. However, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and enterprises took more time to migrate to Windows 10 or 11, the end of support date was pushed at least until January 15, 2023.
Support for Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 8.1 ended in January 2023, and the last version on Windows 7 is Chrome 109.
Windows 8 mode was introduced in 2012 and has since been discontinued.
It was provided to the developer channel, which enabled Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 users to run Chrome with a full-screen, tablet-optimized interface, with access to snapping, sharing, and search functionalities.
In October 2013, Windows 8 mode on the developer channel changed to use a desktop environment mimicking the interface of Chrome OS with a dedicated windowing system and taskbar for web apps.
This was removed on version 49, and users that have upgraded to Windows 10 will lose this feature.
Google dropped support for Mac OS X Leopard with the release of Chrome 22.
Support for 32-bit versions of Chrome ended in November 2014 with the release of Chrome 39.
Support for Mac OS X Snow Leopard, Mac OS X Lion, and OS X Mountain Lion ended in April 2016 with the release of Chrome 50.
Support for OS X Mavericks ended in April 2018 with the release of Chrome 66.
Support for OS X Yosemite ended in January 2021 with the release of Chrome 88.
Support for OS X Captain and Mac OS Sierra ended in August 2022 with the release of Chrome 104.
Support for Mac OS High Sierra and Mac OS Mojave ended in September 2023 with the release of Chrome 117. Google Chrome is the basis of Google's Chrome OS operating system that ships on specific hardware from Google's manufacturing partners.
The user interface has a minimalist design resembling the Google Chrome browser.
Chrome OS is aimed at users who spend most of their computer time on the web. The only applications on the devices are a browser incorporating a media player and a file manager. Google announced Chrome OS on July 7, 2009. Chrome OS, sometimes styled as Chrome OS and formerly styled as Chrome OS, is a Linux distribution developed and designed by Google.
It is derived from the open-source Chromium OS, based on the Linux kernel, and uses the Google Chrome web browser as its principal user interface.
Google announced the project in July 2009, initially describing it as an operating system where applications and user data would reside in the cloud.
Chrome OS was used primarily to run web applications.
All Chromium OS and Chrome OS versions support progressive web applications, such as Google Docs or Microsoft Office 365.
Chrome OS, but not Chromium OS, from 2016 onwards, can run Android applications from Google Play.
Since 2018, Chromium OS/Chrome OS version 69 onwards also support Linux applications, which are executed in a lightweight virtual machine with a Debian environment. To ascertain marketing requirements, developers relied on informal metrics, including monitoring the usage patterns of 200 machines used by Google employees.
Developers also noted their own usage patterns.
Chrome OS was initially intended for secondary devices like netbooks, and not as a user's primary PC.
Google has requested that its hardware partners use solid-state drives for performance and reliability reasons, as well as the lower capacity requirements inherent in an operating system that accesses applications and most user data on remote servers.
In November 2009, Matthew Cappuccicos, engineering director for the Chrome OS, announced that Chrome OS would only support solid-state storage, that is, not mechanical hard disks. And noted that Chrome OS only required 1/60th as much drive space as Windows 7.
10 years later, in 2019, the recovery images Google provided for Chrome OS were still only between 1 and 3 gigabytes in size.
On November 19, 2009, Google released Chrome OS's source code as the Chromium OS project.
At a November 19, 2009 news conference, Sundar Pichai, at the time Google's vice president overseeing Chrome, demonstrated an early version of the operating system.
He previewed a desktop, which looked very similar to the desktop Chrome browser, and in addition to the regular browser tabs also had application tabs, which take less space and can be pinned for easier access.
At the conference, the operating system booted up in 7 seconds, a time Google said it would work to reduce.
Additionally, Chris Kenyon, vice president of OEM services at Canonical Limited, announced that Canonical was under contract to contribute engineering resources to the project, with the intent to build on existing open-source components and tools where feasible. Canonical was an early engineering partner on the project, and initially Chromium OS could only be built on an Ubuntu system.
In In February 2010, the Chromium OS development team switched to Gentoo Linux because Gentoo's package management system portage was more flexible.
The Chromium OS build environment is no longer restricted to any particular distribution, but installation and quick start guides use Debian's and thus also Ubuntu's apt syntax. In 2010, Google released the unbranded CR48 Chromebook in a pilot program.
The launch date for retail hardware featuring Chrome OS was delayed from late 2010 until the next year.
On May 11, 2011, Google announced two Chromebooks from Acer and Samsung at Google I/O.
The Samsung model was released on June 15, 2011, and the Acer model in mid-July.
In August 2011, Netflix announced official support for Chrome OS through its streaming service, allowing Chromebooks to watch streaming movies and TV shows via Netflix.
At the time, other devices had to use Microsoft Silverlight to play videos from Netflix.
Later in that same month, Citrix released a client application for Chrome OS, allowing Chromebooks to access Windows applications and desktops remotely.
Dublin City University became the first educational institution in Europe to provide Chromebooks for its students when it announced an agreement with Google in September 2011.
By 2012, demand for Chromebooks had begun to grow, and Google announced a new range of devices designed and manufactured by Samsung.
In so doing, they also released the first Chromebox, the Samsung Series 3, which was Chrome OS entrance into the world of desktop computers.
Although they were faster than the previous range of devices, they were still underpowered compared to other desktops and laptops of the time, fitting in more closely with the netbook market.
Only months later, in October, Samsung and Google released a new Chromebook at a significantly lower price point, $250, compared to the previous Series 5 Chromebook's $450.
It was the first Chromebook to use an ARM processor, one from Samsung's Exynos line.
To reduce the price, Google and Samsung also reduced the memory and screen resolution of the device.
An advantage of using the ARM processor, however, was that the Chromebook did not require a fan.
Acer followed quickly after with a C7 Chromebook, priced even lower, $199, but containing an Intel Celeron processor.
One notable way Acer reduced the cost of the C7 was to use a laptop hard disk rather than a solid-state drive. In April 2012, Google made the first update to Chrome OS's user interface since the operating system had launched, introducing a hardware accelerated window manager called Aura, along with a conventional taskbar.
The additions marked the departure from the operating system's original concept of a single browser with tabs and gave Chrome OS the look and feel of a more conventional desktop operating system.
In a way, this almost feels as if Google is admitting defeat here, wrote Frederick Lardinois on TechCrunch.
He argued that Google had traded its original version of simplicity for greater functionality.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, though, and may just help Chrome OS gain more mainstream acceptance as new users will surely find it to be a more familiar experience.
Lenovo and HP followed Samsung and Acer in manufacturing Chromebooks in early 2013 with their own models.
Lenovo specifically targeted their Chromebook at students, headlining their press release with, "Lenovo introduces rugged ThinkPad Chromebook for schools." When Google released Google Drive, they also included Drive integration in Chrome OS version 20, released in July 2012.
While Chrome OS had supported Flash since 2010, by the end of 2012 it had been fully sandboxed, preventing issues with Flash from affecting other parts of Chrome OS.
This affected all versions of Chrome including Chrome OS. Until 2015, Google had never made their own Chrome OS device.
Instead, Chrome OS devices were much more similar to their Nexus line of Android phones, with each Chrome OS device being designed, manufactured, and marketed by third-party manufacturers, but with Google controlling the software.
However, in February 2013 this changed when Google released the Chromebook Pixel.
The Chromebook Pixel was totally different from previous devices.
Not only was it entirely Google branded, but it contained an Intel i5 processor, a high-resolution 2560 by 1700 touchscreen display, and came at a price more competitive with business laptops. By the end of 2013, analysts were undecided on the future of Chrome OS.
Although there have been articles predicting the demise of Chrome OS since 2009, Chrome OS device sales continued to increase substantially year over year.
In mid-2014, Time magazine published an article titled, "Depending on who's counting, Chromebooks are either an enormous hit or totally irrelevant," which detailed the differences in opinion.
This uncertainty was further spurred by Intel's announcement of Intel-based Chromebooks, Chromeboxes, and an all-in-one offering from LG called the Chrome Base.
Seizing the opportunity created by the end of life for Windows XP, Google pushed hard to sell Chromebooks to businesses, offering significant discounts in early 2014. Chrome OS devices outsold Apple Macs worldwide for the year 2020. Since July 2021, Chrome OS's embedded controller was changed to be based on the Google-maintained fork of Zephyr, a real-time operating system. In March 2014, Google hosted a hacking contest aimed at computer security experts called TaBNWNE.
Similar to the TaBNWNE contest, they invited hackers from around the world to find exploits in Chrome OS, with prizes available for attacks.
2 exploits were demonstrated there, and a third was demonstrated at that year's TaBNWNE competition.
Google patched the issues within a week.
Although the Google native client has been available on Chrome OS since 2010, there originally were few native client apps available, and most Chrome OS apps were still web apps.
However, in June 2014, Google announced at Google I/O that Chrome OS would both synchronize with Android phones to share notifications and begin to run Android apps installed directly from Google Play.
This, along with a broadening selection of Chromebooks, laid the groundwork for future Chrome OS development. At the same time, Google was also moving towards the new material design language for its products, which it would bring to its web products as well as Android Lollipop.
One of the first material design items to come to Chrome OS was a new default wallpaper.
Google's material design experiment for Chrome OS were added to the stable version with Chrome 117. Chrome Enterprise, launched in 2017, includes Chrome OS, Chrome Browser, Chrome devices and their management capabilities intended for business use.
Businesses can access the standard Chrome OS features and unlock advanced features for business with a Chrome Enterprise upgrade.
Standard features include the ability to sync bookmarks and browser extensions across devices, cloud or native printing, multi-layered security, remote desktop, and automatic updates.
Advanced features include Active Directory integration, unified endpoint management, advanced security protection, access to device policies and Google Admin Console, guest access, kiosk mode, and whitelisting or blacklisting third-party apps managed on Google Play.
The education sector was an early adopter of Chromebooks, Chrome OS, and cloud-based computing.
Chromebooks are widely used in classrooms, and the advantages of cloud-based systems have been gaining an increased share of the market in other sectors as well, including financial services, healthcare, and retail.
The popularity of cloud computing and cloud-based services highlights the degree to which companies and business processes have become both internet-enabled and dependent.
IT managers cite a number of advantages of the cloud that have motivated the move.
Among them are advanced security, because data is not physically on a single machine that can be lost or stolen.
Deploying and managing cloud-native devices is easier because no hardware and software upgrades or virus definition updates are needed, and patching of OS and software updates are simpler.
Simplified and centralized management decreases operational costs. Employees can securely access files and work on any machine, increasing the shareability of Chrome devices.
Whoa!
Google's Grab-and-Go program with Chrome Enterprise allows businesses deploying Chromebooks to provide employees access to a bank of fully charged computers that can be checked out and returned after some time.
In an early attempt to expand its enterprise offerings, Google released Chromebox for meetings in February 2014.
Chromebox for meetings is a kit for conference rooms containing a Chromebox, a camera, a unit containing both a noise-canceling microphone and speakers, and a remote control.
It supports Google Hangouts meetings, video conferences, and conference calls from Uber Conference. Several partners announced Chromebox for meetings models with Google, and in 2016 Google announced an all-in-one Chrome base for meetings for smaller meeting rooms.
Google targeted the consumer hardware market with the release of the Chromebook in 2011 and Chromebook Pixel in 2013, and sought access to the enterprise market with a 2017 release of the Pixel Book.
The second generation Pixel Book was released in 2019.
In 2021, there are several vendors selling all-in-one Chrome-based devices.
Google has partnered on Chrome devices with several leading OEMs, including Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Samsung.
In August 2019, Dell announced that two of its popular business-focused laptops would run Chrome OS and come with Chrome Enterprise upgrade.
The Latitude 5300 2-in-1 Chromebook Enterprise and Latitude 5400 Chromebook Enterprise were the result of a 2-year partnership between Dell and Google.
The machines come with a bundle of Dell's cloud-based support services that would enable enterprise IT managers to deploy them in environments that also rely on Windows.
The new laptop line delivers the search giant's Chrome OS operating system in a form tailored for security-conscious organizations.
Other OEMs that have launched devices with Chrome Enterprise upgrade include Acer and HP.
With a broader range of hardware available, Chrome OS became an option for enterprises wishing to avoid a migration to Windows 10 before Windows 7 support was discontinued by Microsoft. Laptops running Chrome OS are known collectively as Chromebooks.
The first was the CR48, a reference hardware design that Google gave to testers and reviewers beginning in December 2010.
Retail machines followed in May 2011.
A year later, in May 2012, the desktop design, marketed as a Chromebox, was released by Samsung.
In March 2015, a partnership with Apple was announced and the first commercial Chromebox was developed. In early 2014, LG Electronics introduced the first device belonging to the new all-in-one form factor called Chromebase.
Chrome-based devices are essentially Chromebox hardware inside a monitor with a built-in camera, microphone, and speakers.
The Chromebit is an HDMI dongle running Chrome OS.
When placed in an HDMI slot on a television set or computer monitor, the device turns that display into a personal computer.
The first device, announced in March 2015, was an Asus unit that shipped that November and which reached end of life in November 2020. Chromebook tablets were introduced in March 2018 by Acer with their Chromebook Tab 10.
Designed to rival the Apple iPad, it had an identical screen size and resolution and other similar specifications. A notable addition was a Wacom branded stylus that does not require a battery or charging.
Chrome OS supports multi-monitor setups on devices with a video out port, USB 3.0 or USB-C, the latter being preferable. On February 16, 2022, Google announced the development version of Chrome OS Flex, a distribution of Chrome OS that can be installed on conventional PC hardware to replace other operating systems such as Windows and Mac OS.
It is similar to Cloud-Ready, a distribution of Chromium OS, whose developers were acquired by Google in 2020.
Chrome OS automatic updates are available for 10 years for all Chromebook models manufactured in 2019 and onwards. These updates are for the operating system, browser, and hardware.
Google maintains a web page with their auto-update policy and the end date for all Chrome OS devices manufactured.
Previously, the automatic update period was 8 years and shorter prior to that, although the earlier models had continued to receive updates for longer. Initially, Chrome OS was a pure thin client operating system that relied primarily on servers to host web applications and related data storage.
Google gradually began encouraging developers to create packaged applications and later Chrome apps by employing HTML5, CSS, Adobe Shockwave, and JavaScript to provide a user experience closer to a native application.
In September 2014, Google launched App Runtime for Chrome, ARC, which allowed certain ported Android applications to run on Chrome OS.
Runtime was launched with 4 Android applications: Duolingo, Evernote, SiteWords, and Vine.
In 2016, the second version, ARC++, was introduced, using Linux kernel features, C groups, and namespaces to make containers that can run Android apps in an isolated environment.
As ARC++ removed the need to recompile apps, Google made Google Play available for Chrome OS, making most Android apps available for supported Chrome OS devices.
ARC++ was introduced with Android Marshmallow and upgraded to Android Nougat and Android Pie.
ArcVM launched in 2021 with Android 11 and runs on Android 13, starting with Chrome OS 117.
ArcVM uses virtual machines to enhance the isolation of the Android environment in order to improve security and maintainability. In 2018, Google announced plans for Linux on Chrome OS, also known as Crostini, allowing for desktop Linux applications.
This capability was released to the stable channel as an option for most machines with Chrome 69 in October 2018, but was still marked as beta.
This feature was officially released with Chrome 91. In 2023, with version 119, Google released Valve Corporation's Steam for Chromebook beta for playing video games on Chromebooks meeting minimum hardware requirements.
Steam for Chromebook was developed under the codename Gorillus, building off work for Steam OS for the Steam Deck, similarly built using a modified version of Arch Linux. Running as a virtual machine.
From 2013 until January 2020, Google encouraged developers to build not just conventional web applications for Chrome OS, but Chrome apps, formerly known as packaged apps.
Whoa!
In January 2020, Google's Chrome team announced its intent to phase out support for Chrome apps in favor of progressive web applications, TaBNWNE, and Chrome extensions instead.
Whoa!
In March 2020, Google stopped accepting new public Chrome apps for the web store.
According to Google, general support for Chrome apps on Chrome OS will remain enabled without requiring any policy setting through June 2022.
From a user's perspective, Chrome apps resemble conventional native applications. They can be launched outside of the Chrome browser or offline by default, can manage multiple windows, and interact with other applications. Google integrated a media player into both Chrome OS and the Chrome browser, enabling users to play back MP3s, view JPEGs, and handle other multimedia files without connectivity.
The integration also supports DRM videos.
Chrome OS also includes an integrated file manager, resembling those found on other operating systems, with the ability to display directories and the files they contain from both Google Drive and local storage, as well as to preview and manage file contents using a variety of web applications, including Google Docs and Box.
Since January 2015, Chrome OS can also integrate additional storage sources into the file manager, relying on installed extensions that use the file system provider API.
In June 2010, Google software engineer Gary Kaczmarczyk wrote that Chrome OS would access remote applications through a technology unofficially called Chromoting, which would resemble Microsoft's remote desktop connection.
The name has since been changed to Chrome Remote Desktop and is like running an application via remote desktop services or by first connecting to a host machine by using RDP or VNC.
Initial rollouts of Chrome OS laptops, Chromebooks, indicate an interest in enabling users to access virtual desktops. At Google I/O 2014, a proof of concept showing Android applications, including Flipboard, running on Chrome OS was presented.
In September 2014, Google introduced a beta version of the app runtime for Chrome, Arc, which allows selected Android applications to be used on Chrome OS. Using a native client-based environment that provides the platforms necessary to run Android software.
Android applications do not require any modifications to run on Chrome OS, but may be modified to better support a mouse and keyboard environment.
At its introduction, Chrome OS support was only available for selected Android applications.
In 2016, Google introduced the ability to run Android apps on supported Chrome OS devices with access to Google Play in its entirety.
The previous native client-based solution was dropped in favor of a container containing Android's frameworks and dependencies, initially based on Android Marshmallow, which allows Android apps to have direct access to the Chrome OS platform and allow the OS to interact with Android, contract such as sharing.
Engineering Director Zelig Ragmornan explained that ARP had been scrapped due to its limitations, including its incompatibility with the Android Native Development Toolkit, NDK, and that it was unable to pass Google's own compatibility test suite. All Chromebooks, made since 2018, and some earlier models, can run Linux apps.
As with Android apps, these apps can be installed and launched alongside other apps.
Google maintains a list of devices that were launched before 2019, which support Linux apps. Since 2013, it has been possible to run Linux applications in Chrome OS through the use of Crouton, a third-party set of scripts that allows access to a Linux distribution such as Ubuntu.
However, in 2018 Google announced that desktop Linux apps were officially coming to Chrome OS.
The main benefit, claimed by Google of their official Linux application support, is that it can run without enable and developer mode, keeping many of the security features of Chrome OS.
It was noticed in the Chromium OS source code in early 2018.
Early parts of Crostini were made available for the Google Pixelbook via the dev channel in February 2018 as part of Chrome OS version 66. And it was enabled by default via the beta channel for testing on a variety of Chromebooks in August 2018 with version 69. Google's project for supporting Linux applications in Chrome OS is called Crostini, named for the Italian web-based starter and has a pun on Crouton.
Crostini runs a virtual machine through a virtual machine monitor called CrostVM, which uses Linux's built-in KVM virtualization tool.
Although CrostVM supports multiple virtual machines, the one used for running Linux apps, Termina, contains a basic Chrome OS kernel based on Gentoo, in which it runs containers based on LXD.
In the interest of stability and recovery, no Linux apps run on the virtual machine itself. Any installed Linux user and ecosystem runs in an isolated container, all of which are deployed and managed by the virtual machine.
A Debian container with host system integration is provided by default.
Users can install programs to this installation by using tools like apt within the container, or may grant access to .dev files stored on Chrome OS itself, which are copied and installed to the container.
Users may also individually grant access to individual files or USB devices.
Other distributions can be added using LXD, although not by default integrated with a host system.
Chrome OS is built on top of a Linux kernel.
Originally based on Ubuntu, its base was changed to Gentoo Linux in February 2010.
For Project Crostini, as of Chrome OS 121, Debian 12, Bookworm is the default container base image.
In preliminary design documents for the Chromium OS open source project, Google described the three-tier architecture: firmware, browser and window manager, and system-level software and user-led services.
The firmware contributes to fast boot time by not probing for hardware such as floppy disk drives that are no longer common on computers, especially netbooks.
The firmware also contributes to security by verifying each step in the boot process and incorporating system recovery.
System-level software includes the Linux kernel that has been patched to improve boot performance.
User-led software has been trimmed to essentials with management by Upstart, which can launch services in parallel, respawn crashed jobs, and defer services in the interest of faster booting.
And the window manager handles user interaction with multiple client windows, much like other X-window managers. Chrome OS includes the Chromium Shell, or Crush, which documents minimal functionality such as ping at Crush startup. In developer mode, a full-featured mesh shell, which is supposed to be used for development purposes, can be opened via VT2, and is also accessible using the Crush command shell.
To access full privileges in shell, for example, sudo, a root password is requested.
For some time the default was Chronos in Chrome OS and FacePunch in Chrome OS Vanilla, and later the default was empty, and instructions on updating it were displayed at each login. Chrome OS is partially developed under the open source Chromium OS project.
As with other open source projects, developers can modify the code from Chromium OS and build their own versions. Whereas Chrome OS code is only supported by Google and its partners and only runs on hardware designed for the purpose.
Unlike Chromium OS, Chrome OS is automatically updated to the latest version. On Windows 8, exceptions allow the default desktop web browser to offer a variant that can run inside its full-screen, Metro, shell and access features such as the shared charm, without necessarily needing to be written with Windows runtime.
Chrome's Windows 8 mode was previously a tablet-optimized version of the standard Chrome interface.
In October 2015, the mode was changed on Developer Channel to offer a variant of the Chrome OS desktop. Early in the project, Google provided publicly many details of Chrome OS design goals and direction, although the company has not followed up with a technical description of the completed operating system. Design goals for Chrome OS user interface included using minimal screen space, like combining applications and standard web pages into a single tab strip, rather than separating the two.
Designers considered a reduced window management scheme that would operate only in full-screen mode.
Secondary tasks would be handled with panels, floating windows that dock to the bottom of the screen for tasks like chat and music players.
Split screens were also under consideration for viewing two pieces of content side by side.
Chrome OS would follow the Chrome browser's practice of leveraging HTML5's offline modes, background processing, and notifications.
Designers proposed using search and pin tabs as a way to quickly locate and access applications.
On April 10, 2012, a new build of Chrome OS offered a choice between the original full-screen window interface and overlapping, resizable windows, such as found on Microsoft Windows and Apple's Mac OS.
The feature was implemented through the Ash Window Manager, which runs atop the Aura hardware accelerated graphics engine.
The April 2012 upgrade also included the ability to display smaller, overlapping browser windows, each with its own translucent tabs. Browser tabs that can be torn and dragged to new positions or merged with another tab strip, and a mouse-enabled shortcut list across the bottom of the screen.
One icon on the taskbar shows a list of installed applications and bookmarks.
Writing in CNET, Stephen Shanklin argued that with overlapping windows, Google is anchoring itself into the past, as both iOS and Microsoft's Metro interface are largely or entirely full screen.
Even so, Chrome OS already is different enough that it's best to preserve any familiarity that can be preserved.
In 2016, Google included native COPS support in Chrome OS as an experimental feature that became stable in 2020.
With COPS support turned on, it becomes possible to use most printers even if they do not support Google Cloud Print.
Google Cloud Print was a Google service that helps any application on any device to print on supported printers.
While the cloud provides virtually any connected device with information access, the task of developing and maintaining print subsystems for every combination of hardware and operating system, from desktops to netbooks to mobile devices, simply isn't feasible.
The cloud service required the installation of a piece of software called Proxy as part of the Chrome OS.
The proxy registered the printer with a service, managed the print jobs, provided the printer driver functionality, and gave status alerts for each job.
Google announced that Google Cloud Print would no longer be supported after December 31, 2020, and that the online service would not be available as of January 1, 2021. Chrome OS was designed to store user documents and files on remote servers.
Both Chrome OS and the Chrome browser may introduce difficulties to end users when handling specific file types offline. For example, when opening an image or document residing on a local storage device, it may be unclear whether and which specific web application should be automatically opened for viewing, or the handling should be performed by a traditional application acting as a preview utility.
Matthew Papatikos, Chrome OS engineering director, noted in 2010 that Windows developers have faced the same fundamental problem. QuickTime is fighting with Windows Media Player, which is fighting with Chrome. Chrome OS uses the same release system as Google Chrome. There are three distinct channels: Stable, Beta, and Developer Preview, called the Dev channel.
The stable channel is updated with features and fixes that have been thoroughly tested in the data channel, and the data channel is updated approximately once a month with stable and complete features from the developer channel.
New ideas get tested in the developer channel, which can be very unstable at times.
A fourth canary channel was confirmed to exist by Google developer Francois Beaufort and hacker Kenny Strong by entering the Chrome OS shell in developer mode, typing the command shell to access the bash shell, and finally entering the command update _engine client -channel canary -channel -update.
It is possible to return to the verified boot mode after entering the canary channel, but the channel updater disappears and the only way to return to another channel is using the power wash factory reset. In March 2010, Google software security engineer Will Furry discussed Chrome OS security.
Furry described Chrome OS as a hardened operating system featuring auto-updating and sandbox features that would reduce malware exposure.
He said that Chrome OS netbooks would be shipped with Trusted Platform Module, TPM, and include both a trusted boot path and a physical switch under the battery compartment that activates a developer mode.
That mode drops some specialized security functions but increases developer flexibility.
This switch is also reversible.
Murray also emphasized that the open source nature of the operating system would contribute greatly to its security by allowing constant developer feedback.
At a December 2010 press conference, Google declared that Chrome OS would be the most secure consumer operating system due, in part to a verified bootability in which the initial boot code, stored in read-only memory, checks for system compromises. Chrome OS devices ship with full disk encryption by default, which cannot be disabled.
The decryption password is stored in the device's TPM.
Google allows the TPM to be updated manually via the settings.
Updating the TPM will reset the device to factory defaults.
Chrome OS devices utilize a user's Google account password as the default sign-in method.
To enhance security, users can implement additional authentication measures such as PINs, passwords, fingerprint recognition, facial recognition, or smart unlock via a paired phone.
These supplementary measures mitigate the risk of unauthorized access to the user's Google account via shoulder surfing, even if an attacker possesses the user's Google email address. If multi-factor authentication, MFA, is enabled on the associated Google account, the user may be prompted to use it during the initial setup of their Chrome OS device.
By default, the device will be designated as trusted, exempting it from MFA requirements for subsequent logins.
For enhanced security, MFA can be mandated for each sign-in by utilizing hardware tokens, such as YubiKeys, linked to the Google account. At its debut, Chrome OS was viewed as a competitor to Microsoft, both directly to Microsoft Windows and indirectly the company's word processing and spreadsheet applications, the latter through Chrome OS reliance on cloud computing.
But Chrome OS engineering director Matthew Papakitos argued that the two operating systems would not fully overlap in functionality because Chrome OS is intended for netbooks, which lack the computational power to run a resource-intensive program like Adobe Photoshop.
Some observers claim that other operating systems already filled the niche that Chrome OS was aiming for, with the added advantage of supporting native applications, in addition to a browser.
Tony Bradley of PC World wrote in November 2009.
We can already do most, if not all, of what Chrome OS promises to deliver. Using a Windows 7 or Linux-based netbook, users can simply not install anything but a web browser and connect to the vast array of Google products and other web-based services and applications. Netbooks have been successful at capturing the low-end PC market, and they provide a web-centric computing experience today. I am not sure why we should get excited that a year from now we'll be able to do the same thing, but locked into doing it from the fourth-place web browser.
In 2016, Chromebooks were the most popular computer in the US K-12 education market. By 2017, the Chrome browser had risen to become the #1 browser used worldwide. In 2020, Chromebooks became the second most popular and user-oriented OS, growing from 6.4% in 2019 to 10.8% in 2020.
The majority of growth came at Windows Expanse, which fell from 85.4% in 2019 to 80.5% in 2021.
Google's offer of several open-source operating systems, of which Android and Chrome OS are the best known, has attracted some criticism, despite the similarity between this situation and that of Apple-incorporated S2 operating systems, Mac OS and iOS.
Steve Ballmer, Microsoft CEO at the time, accused Google of not being able to make up its mind.
Stephen Levy wrote that the dissonance between the two systems was apparent at Google I/O 2011.
The event featured a daily press conference in which each team leader, Android's Andy Rubin and Chrome's Sundar Pichai, unconvincingly tried to explain why the systems weren't competitive.
Google co-founder Sergey Brin addressed the question by saying that owning two promising operating systems was a problem that most companies would love to face.
Brin suggested that the two operating systems will likely converge over time.
The speculation over convergence increased in March 2015 when Chrome OS chief Pichai replaced Rubin as the senior vice president in charge of Android, thereby putting Pichai in charge of both. The relationship between Android and Chrome OS became closer at Google I/O 2014, where developers demonstrated native Android software running on Chrome OS through a native client-based runtime.
In September 2014, Google introduced a beta version of the app runtime for Chrome, Arc, which allows selected Android applications to be used on Chrome OS. Using a native client-based environment that provides the platforms necessary to run Android software.
Android applications do not require any modifications to run on Chrome OS, but may be modified to better support a mouse and keyboard environment.
At its introduction, Chrome OS support was only available for selected Android applications.
In October 2015, the Wall Street Journal reported that Chrome OS would be folded into Android so that a single OS would result by 2017.
The resulting OS would be Android, but it would be expanded to run on laptops.
Google responded that while the company has been working on ways to bring together the best of both operating systems, there's no plan to phase out Chrome OS. In 2016, Google introduced the ability to run Android apps on supported Chrome OS devices with access to Google Play in its entirety.
The previous native client-based solution was dropped in favor of a container containing Android's frameworks and dependencies, initially based on Android Marshmallow, which allows Android apps to have direct access to the Chrome OS platform and allows the OS to interact with Android, contracts such as sharing.
Engineering Director Zelazrag Hornan explained that ARC had been scrapped due to its limitations, including its incompatibility with the Android Native Development Toolkit, NDK, and that it was unable to pass Google's own compatibility test suite. We will continue about Google Chrome in Part 6, so stay tuned.